Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the empathy session. Empathy. It's a Wulong cliff tea. This is number 5 in this 6-part session. So, what should we talk about today? The topics are so many, and really I think what I'm going to do, originally I was going to talk about alleged health benefits. But I think I'm going to save that for next week because the list of alleged health benefits is increasing dramatically. So instead, let's talk about this particular varietal. This is one of my favorite stories because this is a numbered tea. So just like Night Bloom, which had some number, we have a number of teas in here which their life starts out with some number. This one is also a tea that started out with a number, 105. So as soon as you see a numbered tea, that implies something. And what it implies, it's created by man. You know, because created by man works faster than created by nature. Nature, you know, it goes through its permutations and there's a lot of stochastic variables that work through the whole system. And by the end of that process, you come up with a beautiful tea. And then humans give it a beautiful name. So how long does it take to hybridize a tea currently? It takes roughly 20 years. This is one of those 20-year hybridizations. Started in 1977, ended is not the right word, is it? Completed in 1997. So 20 years exactly. Remembering that when nature is creating a new tea varietal, all the factors related to survival are slowly worked through and it includes lots of the evolutionary things that we're all aware of. When man does it, what's the name of the game? Let's make some money. That is the starting point for everything. Now, of course, scientists don't use that phrase. And you know, that was probably careless of me to put it in such a crass way. But at the end of the day, they really are thinking about that. Why? If you give peasants a new varietal, that's what they're thinking about. Okay, how many years will this give me a repeated great yield? Okay, that's all about making money. And how resistant to money leeching bugs will this thing be? Okay, that's also about money. So when we're thinking about yield, that's the first thing. I'm sorry, when we're thinking about varietals, that's the first thing. The second thing that everybody's thinking about, well, let's see here. What if this thing has great yield and not even one single bug loves it? Have we hit a home run? Answer would be no. You have to now move down the chain of what makes money. If you put something that no bug will eat on the market and it smells bad or tastes bad, it doesn't matter that no bug ate it. Who is going to consume it? So, all right, this is also about making money because you have to have something that, you know, the people love. And the more they love, the more money is made. So, I've used a semi-humorous way to talk about this, but these are all the elements that scientists have to consider because this is the livelihood of farmers. And farmers have hard lives. And yes, at the end of the supply chain, the distributor, the retailer, people like me, yes, there is a money component to it. But I'll tell you, for me, the first thing is a taste component. That really is what's important to me, because the money sorts itself out when you have something that's really good taste. The scientists are working on all of these elements. So that's why, scientists hybridizes something. Then they plant seeds in experimental fields. And they have these fields that are associated with the tea research institutes. And it's great to walk through these fields because they're small plots, different colored leaves, different shaped leaves. It's really, really cool. And so they're testing for the things that I previously talked about, but they're testing over the years because, okay, the first one yields great, moderately good with bugs, taste is a little lighter. Now, as a scientist, I have something else I'm wondering. Okay, in my experimental fields, this did okay. On a scale of 1 to 100, this is about an 89. I'm really close. Are you really close? What question has been left out? Is this experimental station in the Wuyi Mountains? Or is it in Anxi? Or is it in Chaozhou? Any of these places, not any, all of these places have different soil configurations. So until you test for all the different soil configurations, obviously what I just said, and those of you who are scientifically minded are going to say something to me in a minute. I can already feel the pressure in my head. Well, wait a minute, how can you test for every single soil condition? Obviously you cannot. But what you're trying to do is test for the major soil conditions, particularly in those 3 places. If you can pass the test in those 3 places, that's pretty good, because that's where the bulk of the Wulong tea is grown. Now, specifically, empathy is grown in the Wuyi Mountains. What you have is from the Wuyi Mountains, and what you have is from in the mountain, in the Wuyi Mountains. So let's think about that, because right away, I already introduced another element. And that other element was, well, I broadly said Wuyi Mountains. Is Wuyi Mountains consistent everywhere in the mountain? Is the soil profile consistent? Absolutely not. If you're outside the mountain, so you're on the outside of the Nine Bends River, and you're on the flatlands, so it's kind of sandy soil, taste flavor is completely different. No rock rime, no underlying minerality. Yuck. Well, from our perspective, yuck. From the farmers who live in that place, I mean, if you're getting the high yield and you're able to sell it, places, you're doing okay. But that's, the hybridizers weren't testing first for there. They were aiming high. They're aiming for the tea heavens in the mountain. And they wanted to see if they could produce something that would be highly effective in the mountain. So they took a couple different varietals, both of which we happen to have in-house. One was Iron God's Light, and the other was Hidden Door. And they worked and worked and worked, made a varietal, tested it, okay, let's go back, let's do it a little bit more, let's introduce some other elements, getting better, okay, this is a 20-year thing. And finally, in 1997, Eureka, They hit it, they test it in the mountain. It is really good. The farmers like it. And so that becomes an official hybrid tea, 105. And it's used not only there, actually in a few other places, especially in southern Fujian, also use it, but the flavor is completely different. So this is what's surprising, because you think, okay, a seed is a seed, right? That's what we think here. You know, you put it in this soil and you're going to get whatever you get. Put in that soil, you're going to get roughly the same, right? No, not right. Because the soil configuration is so distinctive in the mountain that if it can't uptake that, if it can't do it with yield, what's the use? That is, if your goal is to put something in that market. And when you put something successfully in that market, that's always going to end up being a big money maker if the flavor and consistency are all there. So this is the process that Empathy went through, 20-year process. In 2003, it moved up the ladder. It became part of the official Wuyi Mountain intangible cultural product. So that's the background behind Empathy. There's lots of other things we can talk about. And actually, you're going to see today, I'm going to cut this up into 3 things. The next thing I'm going to cut it up into is the actual processing, because there is a point I want to talk about related to the processing. So when the tea scientists are doing this, are they the processors? No, normally they take it to processors in the various regions. They pay them money, who agree to process it using their techniques and come back and share the results. So that's normally what happens. And so in this case, this is exactly what happened. And farmers, both the Institute and farmers know each other. The Institute goes among farmers and asks for sign-ups. They pay money, they pay incentive, and the farmers put aside a plot of land, not only producing the tea leaves, which they send back, but also producing a product out of those tea leaves, or an end result out of those tea leaves, so that the scientists have 2 things. They have the tea leaves to analyze chemically. Okay, what are the constituents of this? And what did I do right and what did I do wrong? Then, taste-wise, you have the tasters at the Institute. Hey, this tastes pretty good, but where's the rock rind? Hey, maybe we need to have a little bit more floralness in this. And is the floralness necessarily related to the actual hybrid itself? And this is a trick question, because obviously the answer is yes, but there's an asterisk by that, and the asterisk is farmers at the end of the day, or producers at the end of the day, know how to draw out floral versus fruity. So if you oxidize less, you're normally going to draw out floral from most hybrids. If you oxidize more, you're normally going to draw out fruity. Ooh, I left out one very important thing. If the alcohols, the OL compounds, are not in or not part of the constituents, you can do all you want as a farmer and not draw out either of those flavors. But so long as those alcohols are in them, the alcoholic compounds are in them, then that's when oxidation more, oxidation less can make a difference. So all of these things, this is really complicated. The more you think about it, you think, oh my gosh, all right, so let's think about that. If the alcoholic content for floralness and or fruitiness is less, as a farmer, what are you left to do, especially from within the mountain? You have some other choices, don't you? You can focus on the question, can you draw out the minerality? Because some of the teas are all about the minerality and much less about anything else. Can you roast it in a beautiful way that maybe brings out hints of chocolate or hints of caramel? Can you do that as a farmer? So all of these choices exist. However, this is why it takes the scientists 20 years, year after year. You have to go through experimentation. And you can't be almost right. In this shop, let me back up. Let me restart that question. What happens to almost right? Does almost right ever end up in this shop? The answer is no, it does not. It goes elsewhere. In this shop, it's got to hit a home run. Yes?
Do you know whether or not the scientists are factoring in the change of weather conditions, for example, over those last 20 years and then moving forward?
Great question. So are the scientists narrowly looking at these problems and not considering the world that we live in? Or are they looking at the bigger picture? Thinking about global warming, thinking about changing weather patterns. So in 1977, if you had asked me this question, I would have said, well, generally speaking, they're looking at more of the current conditions as they've understood them over the last 20 years. So basically, since 1949 up to that time, they would be thinking about those conditions because there was some consistency in those conditions. When did global warming become a thing? Well, it depends where you were. If you're here in the US, Rachel Carson back in 1960 whatever said, hey folks, maybe the world is changing and maybe we should pay attention to that. So we've had something in the back of our consciousness since the 1960s at a minimum. But for the Chinese, remember, they were coming out of the Cultural Revolution. What they had in their consciousness is, hey, we got to get everything on track. We got to make money. We got to grow the country. Nothing can stop us. And that nothing was no thought really of global warming and the serious consequences, long-term consequences that could exist. By 1997, so this is the second part, there's going to be three parts to this answer. By 1997, were they thinking much about this? Now, scientists in the know who were looking at the West, they were beginning to hear rumbles. And internally, they started to see some things that, I wonder if this is a trend. But they weren't really, at that time yet, thinking about, well, as I do this new hybrid, I got to factor in global warming because, I'm good with numbers. And I'm going to make some numbers and projections and we'll factor that in. No. However, when we went in the teens, 2010 to 2020, we went several times to research institutes. Oh, and when we went last year to a research institute, they led with, we're thinking about global warming. We're thinking about changing environment. We still don't quite know the most successful way to incorporate that in how we do hybrids, but we're thinking about it and we're working on this problem. So that's why it's a three-part answer. Yeah.
How did you land on the name Empathy for this hybrid? Asked John.
Oh, great question. In the Chinese part of my imagination, the Chinese part of my brain, in that part of the brain, what did you reach down and touch in order to come up in the English part of the brain, the name empathy? So the main thing that I thought about was there's two things. First, from a flavor, I'm not going to tell you the flavor profile. This was a trick question to get me to reveal the flavor profile before we get to the tasting. So I caught it out, sniffed it out just before that happened. But the second part is part of the Chinese name has the word pusa in it. And so the pusa is a god of great empathy, right? A goddess, actually, of great empathy. And therefore, it was easy, combined with the flavor profile, to land on this name. All right, so I've broken down 2 out of the 3 things I wanted to talk about. The third thing I want to talk about, and everybody's signaling to me, I can tell. You see, it's great when I have all these producers here. And of course, my watch isn't working. How am I doing? What time is it? Huh?
5 more minutes.
Oh, 5 more. Okay, great. All right, great. So by the way, this is the only time today that my watch will fail. And I knew even as the words came out of my mouth that it was going to fail. So you look at the setup here. So we're going to brew out using these 3 pots, but you look at all the variation in the setup. Why do we have all these things here? Well, we have a gaiwar because that's what this set is called, because that's one methodology that is used to brew cliff teas. We look at, and it's a good methodology, by the way. It's common. More common in the Wuyi Mountains are the Yixing pots. Whether it's purple clay or red clay or yellow clay, all of these are really, really good for brewing Wulong tea, especially cliff teas, because they bring out the flavor. Cliff teas, without question, need more heat. You see all sorts of literature in brewing instructions, and there's a range of temperatures. The ranges that you see out there are not really, for the most part, appropriate for cliff teas. Our 200 degrees is the right range for cliff teas. And I realize I shortcut the second part of what I was going to talk about, even as I am doing this part. And the reason is it's all related. So the process of brewing is important. The process of actually making is also very important. So what's the only place that you can correct mistakes? And you know what? I'm not even going to answer that yet, because Tea Master's over here looking at me and saying, well, I'm already over here and the tea is already waiting and everybody is very thirsty, and I catch that message. So without further ado, let me bring forward, oh my gosh, a jaded. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Woo! Boy, I am not having a good word morning this morning. a full jade wearing Bijou.
It's Buddha.
Yes, a Buddha too. Oh, that's great.
This is Buddha, happy Buddha. 你好，早上好。Yeah, my name Bijou. Yeah, 小贝味 Chinese name. Okay, we do Wulong tea, huh? This is empty.
Empathy.
Empty also. John, I think you know the I want to, you know the, similar, you know the before, you know the what's in China.
So she's going to make multiple cups of tea. All you need is one brewing vessel and one cup. That's what you need. She's going to make multiple at the same time, so you'll have a chance to see how to do that. So what you have is empathy. The rules are 3 minutes and 20 seconds for the first steeping. I'm going to set the timer. And she's heating up all the pots. Making sure that they're all clean. You know, she just has a calm rhythm with this, not in a hurry, but also not slow. Going to get the tools and the tea leaves, and she's going to go ahead and set this up. And so the objective of using these tools is to make sure that you don't touch the tea leaves with your hand. Because you don't know what's on your hand. Shaking the pot. Okay, and drawing the water. So there is a certain principle involved in this. And you see that when she pours, it's relatively higher, but when you actually pour from the pot into the cup, it's always lower.
装 3 minutes。
3 minutes, okay. 23分 okay.
啊不，3分30秒。
2分30秒 okay.
3分30秒。
对，应该是那个。
你忘了？3分30秒。
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter comments, I never really took the time before to examine unbrewed Wulong leaves, and now that I do lately, there's so much variety.
Great comment. So Peter notes that there is great variety among the leaves. And actually, if you saw the fresh leaves, you would be even more surprised. So this implies a question about the fresh leaves, and they do look different than other fresh leaves. These tend to have more yellow in them. And so some of the leaves are inherently larger. So things like water sprites, green robe narcissus, those are inherently larger. Things like these aren't as large as those varietals. So good catch on that. Very good catch on that. So one of the things I was trying to talk about, the question that I wanted to put out there and then answer, is where can a farmer, if they make a mistake, assuming that it takes 26 to 30 steps to actually create these cliff teas, if in step 11 they make a mistake, is there anywhere along the remaining steps where they can modify the mistake? So there actually is, and experienced farmers know how to do this, although it's tricky. Most new farmers aren't very good at doing this, and you can make a real big mess trying to correct an initial mistake. So it's in the roasting. In the roasting, farmers are typically, by batch, taking notes on each of the batches. What's the flavor? Where was it picked? How is the first roast going? Flavor-wise, all of that stuff. And then at that point, if there was a mistake by batch, and usually if there's a mistake, it will be by batch. It's not the entire crop has a mistake. A batch may have a flavor producing mistake. At that point, when they do the next roast, they will sometimes blend with other batches and then roast it a little bit differently than they would roast it if it had been perfect the first time through. So I think in the past, I know in the past what I've said to everybody is once you make a mistake, you're dead in the water. That's not exactly true. You're not good, but you're not completely dead in the water. All right, timer has gone off. And Tea Master is going to start the pour process. And you notice, unlike when she pours water, she's always close to the cup. And that's kind of the rules, and there's a reason for that, because you don't want to dissipate the aroma, and that's why you keep close to the cup. So that was a 12 ouncer that she just poured. This one is a 20 ounce. I got it. You know, it's just a nice rhythm. All right. Good. Okay, she's completed the pouring. And we're going to enter the quality arena. All right. And so remembering the quality arena is all about establishing the astringency, where in the mouth. It's about the aftertaste, and it's about the energetics. Then secondarily, it's about the aroma, and it's about the taste. So I'm going to enter. And it's 200 degrees, so you've got to take a 200-degree inhalation. Be careful. Okay, I'm getting a feel for the astringency. I get some aftertaste, no energetics yet. I get some good feel about the aroma and taste. It's your turn to enter. Actually, it's your turn to brew, not to enter.
Peter asked, what's the terrain like for this tea? It's hard to tell from the pictures.
It grows actually a little bit interior from the mountains in those pictures. So it is in the mountain, so to speak. And the terrain there, so you get to the top of the mountain, you would walk down a trail. And the trail probably is about a half a mile long, and then you arrive at the fields. Or at the field, I should say. So you notice you heat all your tools. Make sure everything is absolutely clean. Shake the tea leaves. Distribute the heat. Draw your water, 200-degree water. Pour it in. Set your timer, and off we go.
Peter asked, when was this tea crafted?
When was it crafted?
Yes.
Is that the question? Okay. So Peter asked a great question. When did this undergo its processing? And to the best of my memory, I think it was 他的是年份应该是20年啊，
这个是23吧？
不是22。
这个大概能有，因为五一原茶呢，when they process, they don't put in the market.
No, I know that. I know.
Yeah,
Sure,
so
RR
I
年.
think RR.
2022 is the, and it, Biju reminded me that it was in May of that year that it actually got processed. And she also brought up another great point, which is typically the best of the teas are not, the best of the cliff teas frequently don't go on the market in the year they're actually processed. They go usually the Chinese New Year's afterwards. So when it's finished, there's usually 6 to 9 months, and then it gets on the market. And part of the reason for that is just the intensity of the roast and the intensity of the minerality, because when those things come off the press, and we have them in here frequently, when they, in October or November, when we get them, we typically do put them up right away. And those, when you first taste them, they're very distinctive, very strong. And for many of the cliff tea drinkers, well, if you're a cliff tea drinker, you actually like that. But if you're not used to cliff teas, it's really strong. So as you're tasting this, one of the things that's really important is to, when you get to the aroma and the flavor part of this, you'll understand the astringency, you'll understand the aftertaste pretty clearly. The aroma and the taste, you got to dig down a little bit because there's a lot going on with this. The other thing I will note about this is this particular farmer has been in this business for a long time. He's probably been farming for about 45 to 50 years. And so that's one of the reasons that early on they used this farmer from time to time to as part of the group that evaluates teas for the Research Institute. Yeah.
Aggie comments, it's definitely a complex tea, taking a while to get a hold of all the flavors and aromas.
Aggie notes, complex tea takes a bit to get a hold of all the flavors. And that's a great observation because this is not a simple tea. On the surface, it seems accessible. Accessible and complex, or accessible and simple, are all different concepts. And so what you have here, yeah, it's accessible, all right, but it also has a lot going on with it. By the way, while you're tasting, of course, I opened up the broadcast without saying the 3 most important words. I apologize for that, and it is Happy New Year. Hope your year this year. Well, I'm trusting everybody's year is going to be a great year. I just have a sense that as hard as 2025 was, I think we're going to have some nice things happen in 2026. Yes.
Jonathan asks, would you say you need to have some empathy for yourself as you explore the flavors of this complex tea?
Great question from Jonathan. Would I assert that, yes, you should have some empathy for yourself as you taste this tea? Yeah, it's complex. And as a reminder to have empathy as often as you can, yes, this is a good reminder of that.
While people are thinking more about exploring the flavor and sense of this tea, I'm wondering about the segregation of fields when you're bringing a new hybrid onto the market, and wondering how careful farmers are or feel like they have to be to make sure that there's going to be not a disaster, just in case. Is that happening, and how far is far enough away, given what we know now about root communication, at least amongst trees?
Love this question, because what we know today is different than what they knew in 1977. And so I would say for this particular hybrid, and particularly when you look at the Research Institute itself, not just the fields in the actual area, the Research Institute itself, the fields are right next to each other. And so cross communication, I would say, at the research stations can happen. For the tea fields, the farmers are usually these days pretty careful to have them on a separate slope, and this is pretty easy because the farms aren't plantation farms, they're small plots. And so to say, okay, this plot's only going to be this, and usually they're really not very contiguous. And because it's newer plants, the roots aren't all over the place. But great question.
Peter comments, I wouldn't have had any accurate idea of this tea from smelling the dry leaves.
This is a great comment. So all of you are getting better and better at thinking about the tea in toto. And what I mean by that is you think about it at the very beginning. So what's it look like? Okay, what's it smell like in dry form? And then you see if you can draw a line to what does it taste like? And Peter's comment is there is no line from that smell to this taste. That is correct.
Jennifer comments, first impressions, very strong roast with an earthy aroma, lots of minerality on the back of my tongue.
Jennifer notes lots of minerality on the back of her tongue, somewhat earthy, strong roast, and clearly the roast on this thing is pretty big. And yet, it doesn't lead with roast. That's the interesting thing. So Jennifer, that was a really good catch to taste down into it and talk about that strong roast. Yeah.
Rob observes, one moment, excuse me. Rob observes, I detected honey sweetness and dried plum in the scent of the tea water. The taste has a combination of minerality, sweetness, and dryness that balances in a way that is not too much of each.
Minerality, sweetness, and dryness in the tea water. A real good balance. Rob comments on this, and he also said the aroma in the tea water is hints of sweetness and plum. I like this because we talked about there is a lot going on with this. And Jennifer, again, tastes down and gets that roastiness and minerality. And Rob says, right at the beginning, hey, there's an implied dried plum and sweetness in the aroma, and the actual taste does have some sweetness to it and a dryness.
Aggie observes, In the bag, I could detect a roastiness. Then the heated leaves smelled of apricot and malt. The wet leaves gave hints of floralness and malt. And then my first sips confirmed minerality and light astringency. As I drink down, I'm getting the scent of orchids, still floral flavor with some citrus and light caramel.
So, I wasn't kidding when we talked about complexity. Aggie has hit all the notes, from the dried leaves into the actual tea water, and then drinking down into the tea water. So let's talk about where she ended up. Hint of orchids, some dryness.
And some citrus, too.
Citrus, thank you. And contrast that where she was at the beginning, apricot. So we had some stone fruit at the beginning, and we get to citrus and orchids. This tea, oh, and minerality also. There was a comment about minerality also at the beginning. This tea has all of these things working, and if you're drinking casually, here's what happens. One of the notes, whatever your either most favorite or least favorite is strikes you. And again, if you're not paying attention, you don't realize there's a whole panorama of things going on. And that's what I love about this close drinking that we're doing, this being present drinking, because this is a complex tea. Yeah.
Peter observes, I find the fruit / floral rides on drivers of dryness and minerality, which gave me the impression of a not dense tea, but it's not. I can't drink this tea fast. There's a lot to it.
This is great. So Peter has an opening round of hints of fruit, hints of floral, but then as he gets in and drinks it, it's like, well, wait a minute. Usually when I have hints of fruit or floral, I can drink things a little bit faster. This one, because there's so much going on, including the minerality, and he correctly pointed out it's not dense. That's not the issue. The issue is there's a lot going on. Absolutely correct. And so while you're thinking, and while I'm evaluating here, oh good, one other thing I'll note is, for me, all of this leads to a physical reaction, and you all may have different physical reactions, and that's okay. I'm very warmed up after drinking this, very warmed up. Almost, you remember when we had Phantom, and again there was that kind of a rush? Well, this is not the rush of Phantom, but boy, it's certainly the heat. Alrighty. Love your commentary. Love the fact that you've detected that this is so complex. More commentary coming in.
Rob says, I felt it in my belly first. A good tea for a cold, rainy day.
Oh, absolutely. A good tea for a cold, rainy day. Rob felt it in his belly. It's really funny. Up here in my upper chest, this thing, I mean, I'm wearing too many clothes all of a sudden. And it's like, oh my God, I dressed inappropriately. But that's not how I felt when I came to the broadcast, because I thought, that's a little cool, cold here. So yeah, belly, chest, yes.
Jennifer says, you mentioned there was a reason for the name related to the experience of the tea. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so the experience of the tea, by giving inroads to all these different feelings, it was like a tea for me, which is good at projecting and also reading feelings. And so that sense of empathy. So that's where I got that, both from the Pusa name and just from this enormous complexity, and it just made me feel, yeah, empathy's the name.
Aggie says, I'm finding the energetics to be stimulating mentally and yes, warming.
Ah, great. Aggie talks about a mental stimulation as well as warming. And, you know, I think I got that too, because all of a sudden it was like I was thinking at a faster pace as I was drinking this. Great catch, Aggie. All right. Loved going through this tea with you. When we put this on the list, again, thinking about the teas that we've had so far, although we've had complex before, not like this. We haven't had, Phantom probably is closest to this in terms of giving that warmth and the stimulation. But this kind of stands by itself for the balance of everything. Phantom, if you'll recall, people talked about it as dense. Peter and many of you distinctly said, no, not dense for this. This is just complex, lots of things going on. So great catch on that. Wonder what's going to happen next week. I just have a spectral vision of something that may happen next. Oh my gosh. By accident, Spectral is next week. Spectral is a new tea. I think you'll have fun with it. Your responsibility in 2026, this new year. Have a great start to the new year, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.